Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. We are a weekly podcast focusing on the paranormal, the supernatural, and the metaphysical. Join us for thought-provoking discussions on paranormal phenomena, conspiracies, and all things unexplained as we talk to researchers and investigators about ghosts and hauntings, UFOs and aliens, urban legends, cryptids, and so much more. Please be sure to like and subscribe and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. You can also visit us at paranomalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. Thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. So grab yourself a drink and a snack, turn the lights off on the way back, find yourself a nice comfy spot, and enjoy this episode of Paranomaly. Stay with us, folks. Hey everyone, thank you for coming in here with us tonight, and we have a great show for you. We have Sev Tok with us. I'm so excited. I'm getting nervous for whatever reason. You're a speaker, author, an experiencer, ufologist, and you're an experiencer advocate. Sev, tell us about yourself.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you and your listeners and your viewers. Thank you very, very much. We had a little discussion before we went on air, which was an excellent discussion about some of the things we're going to talk about coming up. And I'm really looking forward to talking about some of the things that both of you mentioned. You like to go deep, and I really appreciate that. I am an experiencer since childhood. My first conscious memories are from age 10. And it just has continued until now. There was a point in my life where I was more focused on the supernatural than the ET. And then the ET came back into my life, more ET than supernatural. Now it seems to be both. A lot of experiencers have supernatural experiences and vice versa, because I say when you enter that playground of consciousness, you're going to be playing with all beings that are on that playground of consciousness. So you'll come in contact with ETs and spirit guides and dead people and an endless amount of consciousnesses or beings. I was in denial until 2017. When I moved here to the Inner Banks of North Carolina from Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C. And I had an experience where I came face to face with the Greys, and they burned 2 red X marks into my tush. There's the first one. It was about 1 inch to 2 inches wide. And this X has been all around the world. People have measured it. It's equidistant. And it has eventually gone away. And that was the first X. And then that rocked my world, but I was still in denial.
And that's what actually made you realize that these experiences had a physical element to them, that there was some reality to them. It wasn't until then, very late in your kind of abductee experiences, that you realized at that point that it was that it had some physical reality to it.
Yes, that's a very good point. I was in denial because I didn't think I had physical evidence, even though I did. I had scoop marks and missing skin and bruises, and I would see lights in the hallway and other things, geometric shapes on my body, all of it, which I ignored. And but this I couldn't ignore. And this, you're right, Jim, for me, validated that these are not dreams. Because I always thought they were really strange, intense dreams. Now I'm like, holy crap, these are not dreams, which means I'm really coming in contact with ETs. And I had an existential crisis. I was scared to death of them at that point because I was scared to death of the Greys. I wasn't scared to death of the other beings I met, but I was scared to death of the Greys. Now I am not. I see that they were helping me the whole time. But because I had adopted the victimization viewpoint with regards to living my life, I just assumed that the Greys were victimizing me too. And once I realized I was doing that and I dropped the victim vibe, I realized that the Greys have been helping me the whole time. And now I am not afraid of them, and I don't think they're evil.
Now, Sev, let me ask real quick here, because I always get confused. I know there's short Greys, there is tall Greys.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on what the difference is between the Greys? How many Greys are there? Is there a bunch of different Greys?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've had 2 experiences, conscious memories of 3 heights: tall, medium, and short. So, do you have the picture of the baby in the tube?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Bring that up quick.
When I was seeing the baby in the tube, I sensed that there was something behind me, and I turned around, and there were 3 Greys: tall, medium, and short. And this was around 2012. This is before I knew they even came in different sizes. Yeah, tall, medium, and short. And I turned around and I looked at them, and they said, "Oh, we're just going to stand back here. We're just going to give you your time. Take all the time that you need." And I was thoroughly confused. I did not understand why I was looking at this baby in a tube, which had the bluest eyes I've ever seen in my life. And even though I couldn't see its private parts, I knew it was a boy. And I didn't feel anything towards it. I didn't have any maternal instinct or anything. It was just sheer confusion. And then I end up back in my bedroom, and I just tell myself, I'm just going to ignore this, not say anything to anybody. And I kept it a secret pretty much until my book came out in 2018. The second incident, when I was given information about the Greys, happened in a MILAB, military abduction, which I was explaining to you before we started the show. I'm just newly getting into because it's harder for me to process that than the ET contact, actually. It's much more upsetting. And in one of my conscious memories, I was in this room, and I've been in that room times, where there was a glass partition between the room I was sitting in and the room in front of me. And I'm at a table, I'm sitting at a chair, and there's always these young men dressed in the same clothing, like khaki colored, short hair, very neutral. And so they're always standing next to me. And they bring this tall Grey into the room across from me. I can see it, into it. And the guy next to me says, "This is the original Grey." And they take that one out, and then they bring in a shorter version. And he says, "This is the hybrid of the original." They take that one, and they bring in the tiny one, and they say, "This is a hybrid of the original." And with each downgrade, so to speak, there's a loss of sentience. So that's why the tiniest ones are more robotic. They're the ones that come take samples, that do like medical procedures and things. There isn't a lot of sentience to them.
That's really, really interesting. We should come back to that and go over that whole experience more thoroughly at some point.
Yes.
Do you want to start? Let's go back. Let's start at the beginning.
Absolutely.
At the early experiences, which started at, I think, age 10 to 12. But I just want to ask, before you go into those experiences, there definitely wasn't anything before age 10. It's a little bit atypical for the standard abductee to not have anything, at a young age, before age 10. Like there wasn't, you don't feel like there was any possible signs of Grey abduction happening then prior to age 10? Or, I mean, it could be due to the fact that it seems like you were being tended to by some other group of ETs, which, as you'll explain, left at some point at around age 12, and maybe that's why the abduction experiences didn't start until later. But just to clarify that, so you don't think there was anything at all happening ET-wise prior to age 10?
I don't know. I don't have conscious memory of it. I was having supernatural experiences, and I knew things about people that I shouldn't normally know. I had above average psychic abilities. But at the same time, I was born in Istanbul, Turkey, and my parents and I emigrated when I was young. When I was 1, we emigrated to Montreal, Canada, and where my sister was born. And then a couple years later, we came to the Washington, D.C. area, and I didn't know English starting first grade. And so I believe that in order to understand what was being said, my psychic abilities were strengthened just in my attempts to know what people were saying around me. Now, it could very well be that they were also strengthened by the ET contact that I had, because there are numerous stories of kids going on board and doing psychic experiments and being taught how to move things without just using their mind. And so that is possible. I just don't have a memory of it now.
Right, but it's probably completely possible that there could be some experiences.
So when I was being visited, I would be surprised if I wasn't taken on board. Maybe I wasn't. I'd be surprised if I wasn't, though, and I don't remember that. I might remember later, because I do believe that we remember information that's aligned with our frequency. There's high frequency information and low frequency information. And as we raise our frequency, we align with high frequency information. And often we call that an aha moment. But really, that's been sitting inside of you the whole time. You just hadn't aligned with the frequency of that information yet.
And it could be the same with why we don't sort of recall very well dream memories, because our frequency is modulated in the dream state. It's different than our frequency, our brainwave state frequency in the waking state. And you come out of it. I mean, that's what you think too. The reason why the memories are suppressed, do you think there's any manipulation going on, just real quick as a quick sidebar, as far as the suppression of memories? Or do you think it's all just a matter of that sort of change of frequency coming out of that, where when you're in the waking state frequency, you're on a different wavelength essentially, and you don't have access to it anymore? It's just you're sort of detached, from that.
Well, I've had downloads when I was awake. So it just depends on where your focus is. I think you can be completely aligned and completely connected in with the other dimensions while you're awake, just washing the dishes. That can happen at any time.
Okay. Okay. So let's introduce the part with the human-like ETs, which started at age 10. If you want to go into that. And
okay, so at age 10, I was living in a suburb of Washington, D.C. And at night, I would find myself outside, standing in the grass, and I would see a spaceship coming. And each time it came from a different direction. And I'd be so happy, because it felt like I was seeing a relative again, someone that I missed. And the ship would come and it would hover over me. I could see the bottom, and it was so big that I could not see the sky. And it would land, and a door would open, these stairs would come down, and then this being would walk down to meet me. And the being looked more human than non-human. It had dark hair, dark clothes. The only thing I do remember was its ears were just slightly elongated, not very much, and not like Spock. And I wasn't into Star Trek then. And he would just be making sure that I was okay. And we would converse. I don't remember the details. All I know is that I felt very loved and very safe. And then at the end of the meeting, ding, I would find myself in my bedroom. And after each visitation, it's always the same thing, where my eyes just pop open. I'm fully alert. There is no grogginess. It's not like I'm waking up from sleep. It's like someone literally just dropped me into 3D reality. I'm like, ding. And that's one of my signs that I know that I just had an experience.
From that point on, that's an indicator to you that
yes,
experience has happened.
Yes.
So what was the location of these landings again? This was
well, I don't know where the landings were happening, but I was living in Crofton, Maryland, which is a suburb of DC, and it's close to Annapolis, Maryland. I did a lot of my growing up in the Annapolis area.
So the conscious memory recall is vague to the point where you just knew you were outside. You don't remember walking outside. Like you don't have any recall of like you would just find yourself outside at night all the time.
Yes, always at night. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where it was. So you could say, did this physically happen, or did this happen in another plane, in another astral plane? I don't know.
Did you have you ever inquired to your parents about this period and whether or not you were ever unaccounted for or
Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't come out to my parents until 2017, I think it was, right before I had scheduled to talk with Kathleen Marden, because I had to get help. After the second X on my tush, I'm like, I need help. That was the first time in my life. Until then, I never said anything to my parents. With my parents, they were extremely open-minded, being Turkish people of their age. They were remarkably modern and innovative and open-minded. They taught me how to meditate in 5th grade. We were buying water when I was in 5th grade. Nobody bought water then. Our friends would come over for dinner and laugh at us because we were buying water. Vitamins, everything. My parents were way ahead.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And also he was playing like psychic games with you.
Yes.
Which is what you do, which to me, when I heard that, sounds more like psychic training. I almost get the impression that your father or whoever initiated these games had some kind of esoteric knowledge and knew that that's how you develop, that's how you hone psychic ability. Because I believe that that's exactly what you do, or that's one of the things you can do with children is play sort of guessing games like that. You know, what number am I thinking of, etc. I find that interesting. And is there anything about his background that you've come to find out, you know, that would shed any light as to that kind of avant-garde thinking?
I like the term avant-garde.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for mentioning my dad. He passed away 6 years ago. And after he passed away, my mom handed me this black and white composition book. She's like, here, you can have this. And I opened it. It was all my dad's supernatural experiences in his handwriting, which I had never known before, and his channeling, and all of this. And it's a prized possession of mine. I knew my father was psychic and channeling, and we talked about all that kind of stuff. It wasn't really until I was in high school that he started to let on that he's channeling information. But at the same time, he brought home a Ouija board, and that caused a lot of drama. I don't know if you've ever done Ouija boards, but it was good things, but also not good things with Ouija boards, and I do not recommend them. If you don't have control of your ability and where you can go, they're not good. Okay.
You can certainly be misled also if you're not aware that there's definitely trickster entities, you know, that will mislead you, tell you to do things even, you know, that might not be advisable. And if you're, you know, we're just real quick, we're at such a vulnerability, people who are, you know, unaware of this, because we think that anything that, you know, is on the other side that's communicating with us, you know, must be treated as if, you know, it's an authority figure and to be listened to, you know, because they're able to do things that are impossible. And so there's always this kind of dynamic of, well, they know what they're talking about, that it must be real, it must be serious. But, of course, that definitely isn't the case. And
yeah. So are you talking about the power people think that these supernatural entities have over them?
I just think that people regard supernatural entities as being just that, supernatural, and having and therefore they're kind of seen to be as entities who are wise, and whatever they're telling you, it must be right, it must be true, it must be what you should do if it's some kind of instruction like that, because because by virtue of having these supernatural faculties, which seem, to our perspective, like magic or godlike, people tend to, be submissive and suggestible, in the face of interactions like this.
Yes, not only with supernatural beings, but with human beings who claim to be psychic as well.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I had an experience with what I call an astral men in black, where that power dynamic was tested. And this happened maybe 4 years ago. And I had a friend come spend the night for the first time, a girlfriend. And she was a very spiritual person. She considered herself a guru. She was educated in India. And so she spent the night, and the guest room was across the room from mine. And good night. We go to bed. I'm awakened in the middle of the night because she's getting into my bed. And she says to me, "I'm afraid." And I go, "Oh." And then I sense something. And I turn around, and at the foot of my bed, just a couple feet from me, is this tall black being with the hat, the suit, the everything, darker than the darkness of the room. And
was this seen from your peripherals, or
no, I'm looking straight at it.
Oh, you were looking straight at it.
So
this wasn't one of those sort of shadow being peripheral.
No.
Okay.
It was right there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glaring at it. And so I'm glaring at it at the moment it knows that I focused in on it. All of a sudden, I can feel an energy coming out of it and into my chest. And it almost feels like an octopus. It feels like it's trying to just take the essence of me out. Like it just wanted to take me out. And it was intense. And I could feel it inside of me. And I fought with it because I knew I could. Maybe some people didn't know that they can and they might let it win, but I fought with it. I said, "Nope, you got to go. You cannot win. This is not going to happen. You got to go." And I fought and I fought and I fought. And I know this sounds corny, but I felt like I was fighting for my life. And finally, ting, it went away.
Maybe you were fighting for something even more important than your physical life. Maybe, there was some kind of imminent threat to your soul essence. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what,
Possibly, because there's even more. And so wake up in the morning and go downstairs. And I said to my friend, okay. I said to my friend, "Did anything strange happen last night?" And she goes, "Oh, yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, all right. Tell me first." She goes, "Well, I'm in the bed and I'm looking out the window, which is over the water, and I see in the sky an image of Jesus Christ. And this voice is saying to me, we can do that, We can put anything in the sky and make you believe it." So this is happening at the same time I'm seeing this astral man in black that wants to own me. So I tell her about what happened. I woke up in the middle of the night. You got into the bed. She goes, "No, I didn't do that." I go, "Yeah." Because I was completely awake. Because whenever things like this happen, the first thing I do is I take my head up off the pillow to make sure I'm completely awake. I said, "You came in." And she goes, "No, I did not do that." I'm like, "Oh, all right." So we're both wigged out and we didn't talk about it again. And then I discovered, or I realized later, that that being was attached to her, because unfortunately she got hooked on the whole QAnon, going down that rabbit hole of Hillary and Pizzagate and babies and all that kind of stuff.
Which is just such a
And that's a really low vibe. It's fear. And fear is a low vibe. And so we're going to attract low vibe beings. So it's just proof that wherever we go, we take our astral peeps with us. We never travel alone. So that was her being. And it was just testing the waters with me. And it lost. But the reason I like to tell the story is so people know you are in charge. You can fight. But someone who wouldn't know, it was so powerful. I don't know what would have happened if I succumbed. I really don't know. It was so intense.
Right. So I wonder, because I've never really delved into the MIB phenomenon extensively. I wonder if there are, a subset of MIB experiences that are kind of non-physical sort of. There are.
There are many.
Interesting. Yeah, I did not know that. I've only heard about the physical ones. We might as well just get into that. And and so from that point, you have this interest now of the MIB phenomenon, and you've actually put out surveys and stuff like that on your website.
Yeah, and then you know what? I took them down because after all that happened, I was really interested in MIB and I wanted to do more research about it. And then I thought, no, this is a really low vibe, negative thing. I really don't want to spend my time there right now. Maybe later, but I just didn't want to. I didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, most people, seem to have this take on it, like it's kind of like almost like the way people recount horror stories or, scary stories, like bedtime scary stories, there's that kind of vibe to it. But at the same time, like stepping out of that, like there's just some really interesting things about it, they do a lot of interesting things, which are really curious, they seem to have whatever they are. Now, of course, we have to kind of parse, first of all. There's the human MIB, of course, which are humans, which seem to be, geared towards intimidation, silencing people, silencing witnesses to things, suppressing information. And then there's the, the non-human or what seem like potentially non-human MIBs. And we actually have a clip to play about that. So why don't you play that clip now, just to introduce this kind of concept. So this comes from a guy. This was a real early Project Camelot interview. A guy named Dan Burish, who was an MJ12 whistleblower, basically, which is really rare. I don't know of any other sort of MJ12 whistleblowers. I don't think all his information was correct. Like in this clip, like he does mention that, in his opinion. Well, just go ahead and play the clip, maybe Todd, and then we'll discuss that.
All right.
Ready.
Jack
up the volume.
Hold on 1 second. I need to allow this to get there. Hold on 1 second. Come on.
Wait, I'm going to be right back.
It's not coming through. Why is it not going through?
There's no way to.
What the heck? Just had all this working. Technical difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
It always works.
If there's no way, we'll just skip it, and I can just basically summarize what he's saying.
I'm going to try again here. See if I can do it this way. Because I do have the video right here as well. Let's see if it'll let me just plug it right in.
And this is someone that's had multiple
Okay, so
contacts.
tell us about
Okay, well, the Men in Black
the
phenomenon.
Men in Black, yeah.
Part of it is a psychological operations unit within Majestic. And they operate to scare people away from things that they've seen that they don't want them, further bringing information out in the population of the so-called giggle factor. Anything above that, they attempt or have attempted, I don't even know that they're still in operation, to suppress. Then you have the real McCoy. The real McCoy is not human.
Oh.
The real McCoy is in fact a P-45J rod. They are using, through the use of some sort of sinuous biomechanical technology, the skin of a dead human.
Wow.
It is a dead human. These are the ones that walk up to you and they look like they're shuffling, like they've just filled their drawers. When they speak through this technology that they have wrapping around them, they sound very bland, very monotone, and they don't belong. You can tell very quickly that they don't belong.
Have you met one?
I've met several of them. They were operating around my work at Sunchase before we were moved to a different location. Yes, they're very sallow in appearance. They thought that it was an appropriate expression to sing me happy birthday one year over at, I think it was the start of 2003. It was either 03 or 04. 03, I believe it was. Yeah. And I did not like being around them. And they will not think twice but to use force on you. They will hit you. They will push you. One did me. Marcia.
So that's Dan Burish. So just to say though, the bit at the end, they will not hesitate to push you or hurt you or anything like that. I don't think I've ever heard any MIB stories. I don't know if you have, Sev, in your inquiries into this, of anyone being physically harmed. I mean, I've heard of people, being intimidated, terrorized, really, really frightened. I've never actually heard of anybody, being hurt. We don't really know. So all his information, well, except what comes from, his own personal experiences, comes from MJ12. So he has the interpretation of, so the P45J rods, that's the term that certain segments of the military industrial complex and MJ12, apparently, that's what they would refer to the Greys as. And that was a term that apparently, like the linguists, there's like certain scientists that were studying sort of communication with the beings. They came up with the term J-Rod. This has been corroborated by other whistleblowers. And P45 is apparently, like, what Dan Burish was told was that, and this is, there are other, even abductees and contactees who have been told this directly by the Greys. And this is one of the sort of confounding factors, in interpreting, what the Greys are up to. Sometimes they tell people, and this is apparently what MJ12 thinks, that they're humans and they're from 45,000 years ahead of where we are right now in our timeline. And that's what Dan Burish clearly believes. If you watch all the interviews, like he's completely sold on that idea. He actually communication, kind of in-depth communication with one of them. He was someone who was assigned to basically take skin samples from the being at regular intervals, and had telepathic communication, during these events where he would take skin samples. And that's what they tell people sometimes, that they're basically us, from 45. Have you ever heard it about any of this, Sev? And what do you think about that? I personally don't think that's true, but that is something that's out there that's puzzling about the Greys. This sort of narrative.
Yeah, I've heard it. Time travel and all that. It's quite possible. There's so many different types of beings, though. I just really don't want to categorize that every single gray is us from the future.
Right. I think that that's what we have to kind of say preliminarily before we get into any talk about the Greys. So what we're referring to as the Greys, the slender, sort of short, big head. Sometimes, the head is described as an upside down pear-shaped head. What we're referring to, we might encompass a number of different races that look similar.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Right.
Okay.
Yes, good. And in all of my communications with the Greys, because they've given me a lot of information, they never conveyed to me that they're us in the future. That doesn't mean they aren't, but I was just never given that information.
Right. And some people, are given information that they're from Zeta Reticuli, which seems to suggest that, they're not from Earth. If they're saying, they're from Zeta Reticuli, that seems in that statement to imply that they're not Earth originated. So either, I don't know, either there's deception going on and there's sort of different narratives, and some are false and some are true. Or we're talking about different races, and some of them are from Zeta Reticuli, and maybe, who knows, some of them are, future humans.
And let's also remember that perspective is key here. How do you view your life? So in my initial contacts with the Greys, my perspective was through the lens of victimization. I've been in 2 abusive marriages. I thought my happiness depended on how others treated me. I was looking at the outside for peace, and I was everyone's victim. And so when I had the contact with the Greys, I just assumed that they're victimizing me, just like my ex-husbands did. Why not? And it's not until I realized, I need to change that perspective. Well, then I realized that they have been helping me the whole time. So perspective has a lot to do with it. I'm an experiencer advocate, and I help experiencers around the world. If anyone would like to tell me their story or looking for help or guidance, please contact me at sev@planetsev.com. That's my email. And my website is planetsev.com. And, I forgot what I was going to say. Darn it. I was talking about something. And then what was I saying?
We're talking about the Greys.
Oh, darn it. I was talking about experiencers. And
he was just talking about vulnerability.
Okay, thank you.
And how you look at things.
And so when I help experiencers, first experiencer has to understand that perspective is very important. And as long as they stay in the victimization perspective, they're not going to heal. And they're not going to see the beauty of this experience. There was a lot of beauty and there was a lot of information. From my research and interviews, I've concluded that the ETs, a variety of different types of ETs, are giving humans information in 5 major categories. The hybridization program, how to strengthen your psi abilities, possible future fates for mankind, self-empowerment, spiritual information, which is very powerful, and information about the hybridization program. These seem to be the 5 basic categories that we're getting information. And and the information that experiencers are getting, changing their lives for the better, changed my life for the better. And it changed many experiencers that I have talked to have become much more spiritual. are very intent on what is my purpose? Why am I here? And how can I fulfill my purpose? They want to actualize their potential as much as possible. Another thing that happens is they tend to become very creative. Some start to paint, some start to write music. Experiencer art is in right now. It's like a new thing. I love experience art. Yeah. Also, some stop eating meat. They become much more concerned with the health of the planet. And there's much more of a focus of all one instead of just me. And that's a profound shift.
Yeah. So this is what John Mack, and I don't know if you're familiar with John Mack. This was how he sort of differed from other abduction researchers like Bud Hopkins or David Jacobs. He saw the spiritually transformative effects of the experiences and felt that this was something that was really being ignored, that was too big to ignore, and that is absolutely true. So long as the abductees and experiencers integrate and process what happens to them, and they don't, continue to interpret it, from the lens of, like you said, a victim. They seem to go through a very transformative process where, there's a whole shift in worldview, that takes place. I mean, one thing is, the sort of screen images, that they're shown, I think this is one of the big things that sort of precipitates, at least in some cases, the shift in consciousness, is that they're shown potential scenarios of what could happen to the planet, and are, very moved by them, and shaken, sometimes, and people generally report after having these experiences of becoming, more conscientious and environmentally concerned, and then there's, the whole sort of ontological shift, that happens, where they become, aware of the spiritual reality. They become aware of, the nature, the spiritual nature of themselves. That all comes about, from the abduction experiences. And it almost seems like, just in general, they're really transformative and positive at the end of the day. And so,
actually, most experiences do not want their experiences to stop. Because after you get over the fear, and if it's something that's continuous, after you get over the fear, you start to see the beauty in it. And you start to realize how much you're learning that can benefit your life and the life of those around you. Even experiencers like Travis Walton, who at first thought that they were horrible and they killed him, he's had a complete shift.
Complete rehearsal.
That they saved him. He thinks they saved his life. And that's not uncommon, because the perspective changes as you start to investigate and look into it. And also as you start your own spiritual journey, your internal work, your perspective changes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And see, this is one thing I don't understand. I've seen Travis's stuff before. It's very fascinating. But to me, if something covered me with what looked like a rubber sheet.
Yeah, but that didn't happen.
Okay, so
this is what Travis told me. He told me that a lot of that did not happen. Okay. And that he was upset because it was a shock to him that they even put stuff like that in the movie. He didn't know that that was going to be in the movie. There were things that in his experience that were left out. And that it's not a true representation of what happened.
So it was typical Hollywood then.
Yeah, and he did not like it at all. And in fact, there's a documentary out. He does it with Jennifer Stein. It's a really good documentary. I don't remember what it's called, but I'm sure it has the name Travis Walton in it, so you can find it. Right. And it's a documentary about how a new movie is going to be made that is going to be more truthful than that movie.
Okay.
However, that movie put him on the map. It put the whole abduction phenomena on the map. So it is a powerful, very important movie, even though Hollywood does what it always does, and all it wants to do is scare you.
Right. Now, what about people that actually say that they have had these things happen, that fully believe 100% that, they were under the knife, they were being probed and prodded?
Yeah.
Because we know, like humans, we're not all nice, and you know what I mean? And there's agendas, out there with military and things like that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, what would the proper point of aliens contacting us before? What would it be for? Why would an alien that is way more advanced than we are, why would they want to talk to us who isn't really an advanced species?
Yeah, well, because we're the troublemakers in the galaxies.
That's true.
Well, these nuclear weapons. And so just like I have energy, Earth has energy, and that is radiating out into the cosmos, into the galaxies. They can all feel it. And if we have like a gigantic explosion, we're not the only ones that are affected. The galaxies are affected. So they're here out of a sense of urgency. It's an emergency. And they know that they can't do a mass landing. It's not going to work. So they're getting to us individually. As the individual transforms, then the collective shall transform. And that's why so many of us, millions of us, are having contact. And what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with that contact? Are you going to use it to benefit you? And then that information you can share with others, and then collectively benefit all of us. And then one day we can really know the truth because we can handle it, because we're not going to want to kill them.
Right. But you would think, though, they would want to talk to, those in high command.
They have.
Well, I mean, what can we do as,
or maybe those people, in sort of the high institutions of society and education and learning are the types of people that are completely blocked off, from, being open to those possibilities to begin with, and are not therefore receptive, to anything.
Yes, that's a very good point. It could very well be that they're not receptive to the spiritual component of this, the esoteric, the divine component of this, which is to benefit humanity, more peaceful existence, a focus on all. We all matter. We're all one. That is the main message. But it could very well be that the powers that be aren't interested in that message. Yes. They're interested in the reverse engineering and how can I make money off of this?
yes.
I don't know this for a fact. It's just my conjecture. So in the United States of America, probably in all of this planet, the only thing that rules is money. That's the only thing that is the most over life.
Yes.
And so as an ET that is very evolved, how do you deal with us? We're like lower than cavemen. I mean, we're lost. We're completely lost.
I think it's also too that, and this, is kind of what is expressed sometimes through communications of contactees and also channelings, that they regard, the common person as being, just as important as, the president, like it's clear that, we are just as valuable, in their sort of philosophy of things, their sort of spiritual philosophy. And I don't think they make a huge distinction, between, status, and people of different status. And from their perspective, they are, they are reaching out to humanity. People think, why don't they, land on the White House lawn? They are, I think that we're all, sort of masters of our own race, and when we all, sort of share this, sort of responsibility of being stewards of planet Earth, and they just might not differentiate, between. They might not recognize our government also as being legitimate, which I think when you delve into it, it really isn't legitimate. I mean, it's, we're not actually electing our leaders. Our leaders are being appointed, behind the scenes. They're being selected, by elite, networks, and put into power. We have no say on what's going on, and so from their perspective, maybe they don't see our government as legitimately, in charge.
Yeah,
Just an
true.
idea to throw
And
out
that
there.
might matter, and maybe that doesn't matter. I don't know.
Mm.
Uh, we're dealing with, I've come in contact with a variety of different beings, and each and every single one has had a knowing that far exceeded mine when it came to how we all fit together and how this universe works and why we're here. And I really do believe that if each of us gave ourselves permission to focus in on the parts of us that exist in the other planes or in the other dimensions, we can download personal information. It's like free therapy that can really help you with your life, help you make decisions, and also help you with the struggles and the hurdles that you have. In fact, my career is doing that. I conduct soul purpose sessions. I have clients around the world. And this is interdimensional information that comes through from my client. And I was doing this way before I admitted any kind of ET activity. I've just always been involved in that extra dimensional world. And so I still continue it. And I have that spiritual component to my work. And then I have the pure UFO ET component. And then there's a component to my work where both of them are mixed, because they can't help but get mixed at some point.
And see, I totally agree with that. I agree that as well. If you are highly empathetic, if you're a caring person in general, and you help people and want to help people, I think that we would definitely get the message from ETs before anyone else, because we are more open and we're ready to receive these different answers and questions and things like that.
Yeah, some of us are. Yeah, some of
Yes.
us are. And for those of us who are but aren't consciously aware of it, there's a struggle, which is the biggest struggle with the experiencers, is just like, I cannot believe this is true. I just cannot believe this is true. It just cannot be. And then the next question is, why me? And they have to know, they're like, why me? Why me? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why you. The only thing that matters is, what are you going to do with this experience? Are you going to allow it to better you or not? Are you going to allow it to ruin you? Are you going to allow it to victimize you to the point where you are strapped and you can't blossom and you can't actualize your potential? And some experiencers do that. And that's how they identify themselves, as the victim experiencer. I did that. I did that for decades, but I don't do it anymore. And I know the benefits of not doing it. When you're playing the victim, it affects every single area of your life, every single area of your life. It's not like you can put off your ET contact off to the side and say, oh, okay, that's just going to go off to the side. It's not going to bother it bothers every single aspect of your reality, because you're lying and you're not being authentic.
Right. And there is a difference between what you just said and someone that might have hit their lowest point in their life through another different type of thing. So if you are vulnerable and you hit your lowest point, you can receive messages easier. Almost like if someone would say, you can become, they say you can become a demon possess you quicker if you're at your lowest and your most vulnerable. Where that is also true for an ET contact. You're at your lowest, you're most vulnerable, and you are open and receiving, and you are picking up these different things.
Okay, that's a really good point. So
Yeah, I think there's something to say about that. Yeah.
things. So when you're depressed, that's a really low vibratory field. You're going to align with low vibratory beings.
Yes.
So there's that. Another thing is, it is not unusual for ET contact to happen when the person is undergoing some kind of stressful situation or some kind of big life change. It's not uncommon for the ET to show up then. You're right.
And you had that happen with you, actually, after I think some of your experiences with the Greys started right after you moved to a new location, right? Right after you moved.
Well, I had contact with the Greys before I moved here. But the X happened here. I woke up here. I came to realize that it's all true and that I don't have to be afraid of it. And Kathleen Marden helped me a lot with that. You know Kathleen Marden?
Yes.
In
fact, we have her coming on in the near future. Yes.
Oh, good. Yes. And she's become a friend of mine, and she's my mentor too. And she endorsed my book. I'm really honored that she did that. And she was the first person I came out to because I needed help after that second X. And that was the most important conversation of my life. And so that's why I do what I do, because I want to help experiencers, because you don't have to be stuck in that horrible, scared place. It's such a shame that experiencers are having the most remarkable experience a human being can have, face to face with another higher civilization off planet. And instead of talking about it, we're embarrassed. We want to hide it. It affects us negatively. It's a burden to bear. It should be the exact opposite.
Yeah, and you would think it would be now, because people are way more open to the possibility of aliens, UFOs, things like that. Whereas back in the 50s and stuff, yeah, that would be like, we're not ever discussing this ever again. So you would think it would be way easier now for someone that had something happen, and now they can bring it up without fear of being ridiculed, which I'm sure it would still happen anyways.
Yeah, it is easier. It's easier. There's still a lot of pushback, but it's definitely easier for experiencers. The most important thing is for an experiencers to come out to yourself. You don't have to come out to me. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to go on TV, but just come out to yourself, admit that it's happening. If you need help, then contact an advocate like myself, or someone else, or support groups. There's a lot of help now. There wasn't a lot of help when this was all happening to me, but now there's a lot of help, and it's important.
Right. And that is true. And with someone like you, Sev, where somebody doesn't know where to go, they don't know who to talk to. Maybe this is something that they've been harboring for years and years and years. And then they see this show or numerous shows that you've been on, and they say, wow, here's someone that I can open up to and tell her what I'm feeling. Because it takes people like you and Debs, our friend Debs Shatke.
Yeah, I know Debs.
Yeah, it takes a lot of people to get up the nerve to talk to people like you. And I think that what you're doing is fantastic. I wish I could see more people doing this, but each person has their own kind of conviction if they should reach out or just let it alone. And to me, it sounds like they're going to drive themselves crazy until they let it go and talk to somebody.
Do you think, Sev, I know you've mentioned before about the path of authenticity and you should always speak your truth. Is there any time, though, where it might be sensible or even wise to not say something to someone or to
Oh,
uh,
absolutely. So when I talk about talking your
mm,
truth to yourself,
mhm,
so no, I'm not saying go around town and tell your neighbor that you talked to an ET yesterday. No, you know, you might get fired. Who knows? There's still a lot of negative
right,
things that can happen. You
yeah,
have to be very careful. But there are people like me and others who you can say, you can tell us the whole thing and we will not judge you. We do not judge. We will listen and we'll help you as much as we can so that uh, you're not stuck in fear. The worst way to live life is through fear. You just will not be fulfilled. You will not be peaceful. And the ETs are not coming here to scare the bejesus out of us because they want this planet to heal. If we don't heal, we're going to screw up all the other planets and all the other star systems. I mean, they really want to come. They really want to see us excel. They really want to see us get healthy. Or they would
Mhm.
have killed us eons ago.
Yeah, I was just going to say they have the capacity to wipe us out. I'm sure. I mean, they are way more advanced than us, but it doesn't seem like. And every time you talk to somebody in your field, it's this kind of the same thing. They say, but they don't want to hurt us. They want us to learn and grow.
Mhm,
And yeah, so it seems like there's always a very positive message uh,
mhm.
to what we need to do.
Yes, yes, there is. We're like the infants. We're like the infants of the cosmos, and they're not giving up on us. They help. You know, you've heard all the stories about how they're at nuclear plants and they're very interested in what we're doing nuclear wise. And there's been a lot of activity on bases and sites and things because they're vested. They are intervening. They're vested. It's not just our health, it's theirs too.
right. And like you said, it's not just that they're invested in this planet. Like if we would have a nuclear war or something, that would affect even other dimensions. Apparently, is what I've
Yeah,
been.
through that cosmic fabric weave. Yes.
Well,
Mhm.
Right.
sure. And I just heard not long ago that I don't know what country, in fact, I think I know, I'm just not going to say, was talking about putting nuclear stuff in space. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, why? Why would you want to put something that you can fire nuclearly in
Mhm.
space? To me, it makes no sense. That the human race is all about money and death. That's what it seems like.
Oh, right. Yes. That's a scary thought. You know, this whole space force and all that, I really don't know what's going on. And we really don't know what the powers to be know. A lot more than we think they know. Like what's really going on over there? What's really what are we really doing? How do we really are we know about the clandestine programs that our government has had and other governments around the world engaging in psycho warfare, uh, astral travel, mind reading, all of that. We've been engaged in all of this. And could it very well be that going back to that video, maybe another way that there's a MIB is through the consciousness. Maybe they know how to do that. Maybe they can mess with our consciousness. Maybe that being was sent to my room through some kind of orchestrated effort. Um,
Wasn't
subcon-
that the dream of your friend? What didn't it sort of pertain to something like that?
but it
They have
wasn't
the
a dream.
ability to. Oh, it wasn't a dream.
No.
Or what did you say about they have the capacity to create holograms or something
Yeah.
like
So she saw Jesus Christ floating in the sky,
that? Oh, she
and
actually saw it. That wasn't a dream.
no, yeah, she saw. She was awake. She was awake, and she looked out the window, and there's Jesus Christ floating in the sky, and she heard, "We can do this. We can put anything in the sky and make you believe it." At the same time, this men in black is trying to attack me, this astral men in black. And I do believe that they're connected.
Yeah, there could be a connection. So that seems to reference Project Bluebeam.
Yeah, I was just going to say
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And this technology, this holographic technology, which, as we were talking about in the podcast with Augie Nost, the state at which it's gotten to now is probably, I think they've had this technology for a long time. And so I expect that it's advanced to a degree to where they could convince maybe even me, someone who's aware of Project Bluebeam, and the capacities they have. They could convince me, of certain things, an ET invasion potentially, and things like that, because it's probably that advanced, I would think, at this point.
Mhm.
And yeah, who knows? I mean, maybe there is some relationship to that and the MIB phenomenon,
Mhm.
potentially.
Now, Sev, I have a question. I don't mean to have to skip back, but when you was talking about MIBs, you talked about an astral MIB.
Mhm.
Now, what is the difference between like a real human Men in Black and an astral one?
Well, I don't think I've met a Men in Black in 3D. And if I did, I don't think its energy would have come out of it and gone into my energy and tried to like pull my essence out.
Okay.
And so that's why I call it an astral Men in Black, because the experience was beyond 3D, way beyond 3D.
Okay. All right. And I wasn't sure. That's why I was like, let me back up just a minute
Yeah.
and see what we have.
Mhm.
When you I'm just gonna bring this up because I want to get some clarity on this picture
We
as
also
well.
have a lot of comments and questions, and I'm so grateful to everybody. Thank you.
So your picture of the gray that you've seen. Now these folds at the top above the eyes, that is skin, correct?
Yeah, it was like wrinkles. It was just all folded. Yeah, going all the way across.
So that, according to, if you look at regular photos of people that draw grays, I have never seen one like this before.
Mhm.
And I'm just trying to figure out, I'm just trying to see like what kind of a gray this would be, since this
Okay,
one
well,
has
I have okay, so, it's wrinkles. So, maybe I could have drawn it a little bit better, but it's like wrinkles,
no,
and
no,
I
that's
have
fine.
seen depictions of people where they have seen wrinkles on the forehead of grays.
Okay.
Yeah,
And is
but
that normal biologically with,
I
I
have
mean,
no
like,
idea.
because I wondered if that, because actually the clip that we played of Dan Burish earlier in that interview, he mentioned something about the Greys having some kind of, and I don't know if you know anything about this or have ever been told anything about this, having some kind of genetic malady or something that affects their appearance, that the Greys that we see, or at least, some of them, their appearance is not how it should be, that they're affected by something or other, and it affects how they look, and also their sort of stature and the way they stand, and they kind of lurch forward, some of them, due to this condition, is what he said. And I don't know if there's any kind of connection with that,
I
but
never heard of it put in terms of them having a condition. It was just kind of assumed that this is just an evolution.
Sure, and it makes perfect sense. I mean, there's many different nationalities and things for us, so it would be fair to say that they would have that as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's just interesting because I never seen a drawing like yours before.
Mhm.
More like the other ones that I put up, that regular kind of shape. But that's very interesting. Very interesting. Now let me see here. Now, Sev, I need to ask about. Let me share the screen again one more time here. Now, this marking, that you have. Was the other, you had two of these, correct?
Yes.
And were they both exactly the same like that?
Yes, they were exactly the same. They were 9 days apart. One was on the left cheek of my tush, and then 9 days later, there was one on the right cheek of my tush. And in my book, I have the complete picture of my tush. I don't know if you can.
Let me,
But anyway, it's in the book where you can see both X marks on my tush. And so it was the second one. Did I tell you the story? Have I even told you the story of how this whole thing happened yet?
You went into it a little bit, but
little bit.
we'll go into it more thoroughly. Yeah.
So we moved here, and before coming here, the gentleman I came here with, who I'm no longer with, he and I also had a shared experience in Roswell before we came here. And so it was the second morning I was here, or the third morning I was here. I was in the kitchen unpacking dishes. We had just moved here. I felt something bite my butt and it hurt. So I yelled over to him. I said, I think something bit my butt. Will you look at it? He goes, sure. So I walk over to the living room and I pull down my shorts and I bend over and I'm laughing because I think this is funny. And there's just silence. And I'm like, what's going on? And it's just silence. I'm like, well, just something bite my butt. And I'm starting to get worried. He goes, yeah, something bit your butt. And there's also a red X. And so he took a picture and he showed me and I was stunned. And he was stunned too. He's a very, very logical person. He was absolutely stunned. And I instinctively knew it was the Greys, just knew it. And I was scared to death of them. And I was mad and scared. And I said to him, we're going to pretend like this never happened. We're going to pretend like we never saw this. He's like, okay. But that was my MO. That's what I did my whole entire life. And then 9 days later, ding, like this in my bedroom. And I have this gush of a memory where I'm on this bed. It's like a hospital type bed. And I'm on my side. And I can't move my arms and I cannot move my legs. And I'm in a room I don't recognize. There's hardly any furniture in it. It's dimly lit. And I sense there's something behind me. And I could turn my neck. So when I turn around, there was that Grey standing right here. And we looked into each other's eyes. We locked eyes. And I describe it as looking into two pools of black oil. Like it wasn't deep. It was just like flat.
And you didn't feel anything beyond that? Because I know, like, it's interesting, all the different reactions to the eyes. Like some people say that, you go into a trance, you look in the eyes and it's like blackness engulfs you and you're in an altered state of consciousness, in moments, after looking into the eyes. And then other people are just horrified by the eyes. A lot of abductees just have this revulsion to making eye contact with them. I think in large part because there's a telepathic connection that happens when you look into the eyes, and there's a discomfort in having all of your thoughts, which you think are private, which we mistakenly think are, nothing has access to, and only we can view our thoughts. All that is suddenly laid bare, and I think that accounts for the terror that people feel and experience when looking into the eyes. It's that kind of ontological shock of suddenly finding out that your thoughts aren't private, and it's not really necessarily a sense of evil or sort of nefariousness on the part of the being, but just that sort of feeling of being naked mentally, and having your thoughts spill out for something else to peruse. So did you have any experience like that when you looked into the eyes, or did anything telepathic transpire at all?
So that was the first time there was no telepathic information. All the other times there was always telepathic communication, but this time there wasn't. And that is what I think scared me the most, because then that made it seem more like this cold monster, because there was nothing coming from it at all. It scared me even more. And so we just stared at each other, and then I turned my head and ding, I'm in my bedroom. And I'm scared. And I go downstairs and he's still sleeping, and he always got up before I did, always, but not this time. So I go downstairs and I'm waiting for him because I want him to check my butt, because if there's another X on it, I think I'm just gonna lose it. I don't think I can handle it. Now, I could have looked in the mirror myself, but I didn't. I was so scared, because I thought I was ready to, like, I thought something was gonna happen that I couldn't handle. So he came downstairs and I asked him, did anything strange happen last night? Because when we were in Roswell, strange things happened and he saw them and felt them. And he said, no. I'm like, was I gone at all in the middle of the night? And he goes, no. And I'm like, all right. So I told him my memory. And there was also another aspect to my story, which I had never known in any of my other ET contact. And when I was on that bed in that room, I had a knowing that I was on the moon. And so I tell him this, and it's time to check my tush. And there's just silence. He's not saying anything. And I'm starting to panic. And he goes, yeah, there's another X just like the first one. And so he takes a picture, and that's my crisis, my existential crisis. Because in that moment, I didn't know what was real anymore. My sense of reality was just ripped right away from me. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who we were as a human race. I didn't know why they were messing with me. I knew nothing. And it was a very, very scary, scary place to be. So he couldn't help me. He wanted to help me, but he couldn't. And so once I calmed myself down, I declared that I needed help. That was the first time in my life ever that I asked for help, but I didn't know who it was going to be. I had no idea. I was so afraid of the Greys that I would not read any books about them. I wouldn't watch any movies about them. Like, I couldn't see them. Like, it was out of the question. So I didn't know who or what was in the UFO world. And a couple months after that, my girlfriend, Elizabeth, who lives on the island of Kauai, she called me and she said, I think there's a movie you'll like. It's called Unacknowledged by Dr. Stephen Greer. So I watched it, and that lit something inside of me. And after I watched it, I went to my computer and I told myself, this is it. I have to find somebody to send a picture of this X to. And I heard in my head, MUFON. And I didn't know what that was. So I Googled it. It's a real thing, Mutual UFO Network. And I saw a picture of Kathleen Marden. And I told myself, she's it. She's the one that's going to help me. So I emailed her. She responded right back. And she spent an hour and a half with me Skyping. And it changed my life. And then I still didn't know what I was going to do with all the information. And I just told myself, I don't have to do anything. You know, I could just sit on it. If I'm going to do something with it, it'll organically happen. If I'm not, it doesn't matter. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Although back then I did see myself in my mind's eye talking on stage, which freaked me out because back then I didn't want anybody to know what was happening to me. So to see a vision of me talking on stage was like, that's impossible. Like, I can't possibly do that. And then a few months after that, I woke up one morning and I said, I'm writing a book and I'm going to call it You Have the Right to Talk to Aliens, and I'm coming out. And when I went to sleep the night before, I didn't have those thoughts. I don't know what happened that night, but when I woke up that morning, I was determined. And I wrote the book. I wrote it in 2 or 3 months. And then I was asked to be a speaker at AlienCon in Baltimore, which was appropriate because I had a lot of ET contact in Baltimore. And that's when I realized I want to help experiencers, because people were coming up to me and telling me their stories. And these are important stories. These are emotional stories. People just want to get it off their chest. Also, validation is good. They describe something that happened to them, and I can say, oh, yes, I've talked to other experiences that's happened too. And that's a sense of relief. You're not making it up.
Yes. And, you know, when someone firmly believes without a doubt that has happened to them, I believe that, that is what they're experienced. They experienced something that, well, it's hard to explain.
Mhm.
They clearly experienced it.
Yes, and I saw someone in one of the comments, somebody asked, well, do you have proof of your contact? I'm like, well, I have 2 red X marks on my ass. I think that's pretty good proof. But the other proof also comes in knowing something I didn't know the night before I went to bed, a download. So that's what happened in Roswell. When I woke up in the morning, I had a download of the hybridization program, along with something that happened that night. And that's my proof. Like, how did I go to sleep not knowing something, wake up, know a lot about it? And also my proof is how it's changed my life and how I've changed my perspective and how I've changed how I look at things and how I respond to things. And so that's proof right there. So a lot of very logical people have a trouble understanding ET contact because it goes on beyond 3D. So if you only want to look at life through 3D lens, you're not going to understand life, and you're going to see it in a very, very tiny, narrow perspective, which is not going to benefit you at all. You're going to feel victimized by it if you look at life purely through a 3D lens. ET contact is multidimensional and interdimensional. And if you don't accept that, that's okay. But it's the truth. It's beyond 3D.
Right.
So there aren't a lot of Travis Walton stories or Terry Lovelace stories or Betty and Barney Hill stories. There aren't a lot of them. There are a few. But what's happening is a shift into this multidimensional consciousness contact. That's where a lot of the contact is happening.
And I think that what a lot of the problem is because there's a conflict between religion and God says he created man in his own image, yet we have extraterrestrials, which should not be, because then they're not God didn't create us in his own image. Then I think it's just a whole back and forth battle between, well, that can't possibly happen because the Bible says it can't. And I think that is a big conflict of what religion has a lot to do with it, even with ghosts and hauntings and things like that. It's so I clearly believe that is one part of the problem between people.
Yeah, but the Vatican has admitted that there's ET life. The Vatican admits it. And for instance, this talk, did you see the talk with the Lieutenant Colonel Carl Nell? Do you know about that? You know about David Grush?
I know about David Grush.
Yes.
Now.
And so just recently, there's a gentleman that gave a very short talk for the SALT Foundation that the chairman is Anthony Scaramucci. And so what it is, it's like a platform for investors and tech entrepreneurs to find the next best thing that they want to invest in. And so he had this gentleman who was Grush's boss speak for 20 minutes because there's an intense interest in defense and space and defense. And so this gentleman said 100%.
He corroborated Grush.
We're being visited and it's being re-engineered. It's 100.
I did not hear that. That's pretty significant. If Grush's boss has come out corroborating,
it is significant. Yet, if you ask the average American, they have no idea. So I'm like, okay, what's going on with us, society? You're screaming, we gotta know, we gotta know, we gotta know. Then you have this man come up and say it's 100%, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I can't listen to that. There's still a huge disconnect because the fear is there.
Well, I think there's a lot of disinformation as well. We're being bombarded on all different angles, and we're getting told that there is, then there isn't. This person's coming forth saying, "Oh yes, we got this base on this planet," and then somebody else is coming in and they're saying, "Oh no, so people are so confused they don't know what to believe."
Mhm.
And they're starting to get used to psyops, too. And
Yes.
I think that's part of the problem now. And a lot of people who would normally be open-minded to this thing have been so conditioned through, repeated psyops that they're tending to think that, this might be another psyop, or another distraction of some kind, to
Mm.
get us to think about something else, while the economy's bad, or,
Well, what it's doing is it's empowering us. For those of us who decide to drop the victim vibe, we can see how it's actually empowering us. This is not what the government wants. You think the government wants us to be self-empowered and get all these spiritual messages about how to be autonomous and how not to have that huge thumb over the top of your head, which the government is? These are the messages that we're getting. And I think this is the biggest problem that the powers that be have. So experiencers are debriefed by, I don't know if it's the government or some other organization. My very, very, very first conscious memory of a MILAB experience happened the very first time I talked to Kathleen Marden, what I was telling you about. That night, I had a MILAB experience.
That's an interesting correlation.
Wow.
What do you think that means? Why would it happen?
Yeah,
Right.
well, I think, yeah. And so I was in like this office type room. It was under the ground. And I was shown this big poster. I actually have drawings of all of this. And there was once again one of those young men standing next to me. And I'm shown a poster of the flight path of a UFO. And I have a biology degree. And so I recognized that there were physics equations and other equations. I don't remember what they were. And so he turned to me and he asked me, when does the ship reach its K point? And then ding, I don't remember anything else. And so
And that's a real thing, right?
yeah, as a biology major, I didn't remember the K point, but I looked it up and it's a real thing. And after that, I actually heard it on the Winter Olympics with that sport where I think it's called ski jumping, where they go really high and then they land. And so the commentator was talking about the K point that the skier was achieving. And I was like, oh, okay, so it has something to do with elevation and landing or something. And I also mentioned this to Grant Cameron, Grant Cameron, the UFO researcher from Canada.
Yes.
I mentioned this to him too. And then he sent me the story of an experiencer who came in contact with Grays who were teaching her about the K point.
That's interesting.
So we're debriefed, we're completely debriefed. We're asked to do things. Some of us don't want to do them. They tend to be psychic in nature. They're no good. This is where a lot of torture and bad things happen right there when they want you to do something you don't want to do it.
So, Sev, what is your interpretation or meaning even of these marks that were placed upon you? I'm curious on
they're notably. I think something about it, that to me stands out is they're notably conspicuous. They almost seem like they're meant to be seen. Like they're not. They clearly weren't meant to be discreet. I mean, what do you think about that? It seems like you were meant to find them. It precipitated this whole sort of awakening. You realize,
Absolutely.
oh my God, this is real.
Yes.
Could that have been it? Could that have been?
Yeah, because for decades I've been ignoring them and they've been giving me very clear signs and I've been ignoring them. So I joke around that one gray asked the other gray, how the hell are we going to get her attention? And the other gray says, let's just put 2 red X marks in her ass. They're like, brilliant, because that did get my attention. Why on my tush? Why on my tush? If I didn't have a partner, I might not have ever have seen this. And so, first of all, the X mark, we know that X mark is an ancient symbol. I don't think we really even understand what the X mark stands for and how old it really is. It might be one of the original symbols. I don't know. And why on my tush? Well, I do know that Kundalini energy resides in your lower chakras, down in the lower part of your body. And when Kundalini energy is activated, you have to know the truth. and you're on a path of authenticity. And so that's the path I was on. I was like, I want to be the most authentic version of myself I can possibly be. And that journey for me included the ETs. It doesn't include the ET. Not everyone's journey includes the ETs, but mine did. And I do believe that my Kundalini energy was activated. I think that's what happened there. And I think it's a mix of many things. First, the X mark is relevant. The positioning is relevant for energetic reasons, but also it makes an interesting story. I'm on several TV shows, and one of them is a documentary, a Canadian documentary, and I actually have a butt double. Yeah. Yeah. She's a lot younger than I am too.
And this is very interesting because if you look at this, there's 5 marks horizontal and 5 vertical.
I think there's 9. Or shouldn't
There's
there?
9.
Oh, is there 9?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what is the significance of that, of the 9 marks? Do you know, does that correlate with something in the universe, or?
Well, 9 is are you into numerology?
Somewhat, not a whole bunch. I'm learning.
A number. It signifies the end of something on to the beginning of something else. Yeah. And also, if you look, it looks like there might be like another dot on top. And
I wondered about that. I wonder if that was just like
maybe there was more of a grid maybe there, and those are the only ones that stuck out. I'm not sure.
Well, then what about, have you heard about, and I don't know that much about this. I've just recently become aware of it from Ralph Blumenthal, who I watched on Jeffrey Mishlov's podcast. He was talking about the red grid phenomenon. And this is something that's been happening in recent years. And it's, there's Facebook groups now, there's lots of Reddit threads out there, people claiming that these red marks are showing up on them. Normally, I mean, they vary, but they're normally sort of in a grid sort of pattern. They're equidistant. They don't look quite like yours. All the ones that I've seen, when I looked into this, look different. Although there was some that were kind of comparable to that they were actually circles, red circles, and they made sort of geometrical patterns.
Yes, I had geometrical patterns on me too that were burned into me, and with time you could see the burnt skin was turning white, and you could start to see there was this octagon shape that was forming.
Oh wow.
That's interesting, because one of the pictures I saw of someone, regarding the red grid phenomenon, they were kind of like octagons that they had on their arm or something. I don't know if you can maybe look up something, Todd, and find something on that or some pictures.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do attribute it to the abduction phenomenon. I'm not exactly sure what all the connections are, but there's been surveys done, and people say a large percentage of people say that it occurred in correlation with some strange dreams, some strange vivid dreams. So that kind of sounds.
I'm trying to come up with another word, because these aren't dreams; they're real experiences, and a dream just doesn't do it. So I'm trying to come up with another word. I can't come up with another word yet. In this world where we're talking about these kind of entities and these kind of experiences, we're lacking so many words. We need a vocabulary.
I think that same thing too. I've written articles, and I always and so many words are kind of have so much baggage to them, or religious connotation, that if you use this word, certain groups of people will be turned off instantly.
That's right.
I always think about that. Yeah, that there's just a need for new terminology that would really help sort of bring the field forward, increase credibility with communication and whatnot. Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe altered state experiences. I don't know what could be, rather than dreams, another term.
I call them night travels sometimes, but they don't always happen at night. They can happen in the middle of the day too.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's see here if I can bring up a couple of pictures here. Here is one.
Of a red grid.
Yes. So here's one of a red grid. And then let me pull up another. And this one right here.
That's kind of the more typical red grid appearance.
Yeah, so it looks like the circles are bigger, and are they equidistant? It does look a little different. So with each one of these, the person does have a conscious memory of contact?
No, not with each one of them. With like at least like I think that one of the surveys I saw that was done on that Facebook group was like 51% of people who reported the markings felt that it had occurred in correlation with an unusual dream of some kind, or what they interpreted as an unusual dream. I think there are other connections with the like some of the people identify as abductees who get these red grid markings and have had other abduction related experiences and maybe even other markings and scoop
Yeah,
markings.
bruising, like really severe, dark, heavy bruising, that's not uncommon. Scoop marks, I've had a scoop mark. I would like to say hello to someone who's watching, Malachi, who's a friend of mine, and I'm just so grateful that you're here. Thank you.
Sure. Oh, yes. Let me bring up that. There we go.
Sacred geometry. Yeah, it's an ancient symbol, the X. And then also the X is such a common symbol in the whole UF world. You have the X files and the X this and the X that, and it's everywhere. And it stays.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. What did you say?
Okay, no, I'm just curious. I thought my my mixer went out. I was like, wait, I can't hear. So you believe yours had that interpretation, and my thought is why two of them? Why one on one side, one on the other? Do you think that was
balance things out to make it more crazy,
or to kind of like solidify the feeling that it's not an accident, you know, like one, you know, like that's weird, you know, and then you get a second one and it's like it shatters any doubt maybe at that point. As soon as the second one appears, you know, it's like, well, you know, no way that absolutely no way that could be random now at this point, you know. That was kind of like the kicker, you know.
Right, your validation.
Right, and that's why I lost my mind.
And it is really substantial, you know, to me, you know, and I think abduction researchers would regard this as such. It's pretty substantial physical evidence, you know, that there's just clearly there's no way that could have just formed naturally, you know, equidistant dots, you know, in the shape.
You know, no, I went around the whole house. I would sit down and I would like rub my tush on things, on the chairs, outside, in the car, everything. I was trying to figure out what could put that kind of indentation in me but that I didn't even feel. Like I didn't even feel that. If it wasn't for that bug bite, I wouldn't have asked to look at my butt. And I mean, the bug bite had something to do with it too.
Or maybe it wasn't a bug bite. Maybe it was maybe it was something they did, you know, to make you feel some kind of pain to check out that area. Because you might not have been on your rear end, you know, if it hadn't have been for that, you might, you know.
No, never seen it. It's very possible. Yeah. I'd like to say hello to my other friend who's here, Maria.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Maria's from Baltimore. Thank you, Maria.
So now with these marks, and trust me, they look like it would have hurt to get that. So do you think it could be also like a way of, how do I want to say this? like marking you so that they know who they talk to.
Hmm.
Like we talked to Sev. Okay, how do we know we talked to Sev? Okay, well, we put these marks on her butt.
Maybe more
In
in
a
a
specific
symbolic
way.
sense, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they went away. And I think they're more advanced than that. I don't think they need to, like, like cattle need to like burn something into us to recognize who they are. So an experiencer here in North Carolina, she's had several experiences. And she actually she made a painting of this, and it's of the world, and surrounding the world is this light grid. And so in her experience, the ET said to her, we can see when a human awakens, so to speak, has a spiritual awakening, because their light is brighter. And from our perspective, we can see them igniting, and we can see all these spots around your earth, like this light web, like this light matrix. We know who you are. They also told her that when you dig into earth to take oil, you're taking her blood, and it's not good.
And that's why I thought maybe some kind of like a brand or an implant. People have said about implants.
So that's why I think that a lot of people think the implants, even abductees, really sort of maintain that they feel that they're tracking them through implants. I do not think that beings at the level of technology and advancement that they are at need any such, devices to track you. Just the faculties of consciousness alone, are enough. I mean, if you understand and know about remote viewing, that demonstrates that, even at our level, we can track people, without the need for implants and things like that, whatever they are, and I think that there's something to them. I don't think that they're just completely unrelated, things that aren't anything, but
I know they're really important. I think they help regulate any kind of ailment that might be in the body.
Yes.
Why
that makes sense.
Is there some kind of reason why you feel that's the case, or have you heard any?
Well, because I agree with you that it's just really tiny thinking that they have to put a little thing in us to know where we are. That's really small, like human thinking. So it's not that. So why else would they put something in our bodies while they're helping us at the same time? So they're giving us all this beautiful information for us to become stronger. And then they're not then going to put something in our bodies that's going to make us weaker. It doesn't make sense. So
right. And they obviously have a vested interest in you, and if they're, taking, genetic material from you, they don't want to do anything that would infect, the host, not to
That's
use.
right. They want to keep you healthy. That's right. They're taking your genetic material. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but then we're trying to make it make sense, and it could be something completely different that we have no idea about. Because people are trying to make sense of this crazy, crazy happening. So what I do, and this has to do with absolutely anything. If someone gives me a channeled message, or if they give me a message, some kind of spiritual message, I do not care where it comes from. So if you're telling me it comes from Mother Mary, or you're telling me it comes from Isis, I'm like, whatever. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it does. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me, how does this message make me feel? And is my life better knowing this message? Is it better or is it worse? That's all I pay attention to. If these messages are beautiful, supportive, loving, have my best interests at heart, I'm going to pay attention. I don't care where it comes from. It's not coming from a bad place. That's for sure. I don't have to know the name of the being that this information is coming from. Some people are intent on who's the being, where do they come from? Why don't you ask these questions? Well, ultimately, when you're in that experience, the best way I can describe it is say you go to college and you go home for Christmas. Well, when you go home, you don't look at your mom and go, who are you? Where am I? It's just like you just know it. And that's what it's like in these experiences. That's why many of us don't ask, who are you? Where are you from? Some of us do. But in the beginning, we rarely do for two reasons. First, we intuitively already know the answer. And also, second, we're so afraid that we're afraid to interact. We're afraid to ask. We think that they're going to do everything to us. We don't feel like we have any power or any word. And that's not true. We can interact.
I have something to ask you that is of interest to me. So when you're in these altered state experiences or these travels, people report that when you're in that state of consciousness or on that wavelength, on that frequency, that while there, you have access, you know all the answers that you're looking for, or you know a lot more than you do in your normal state. And like abductees, for instance, some will be in a state of doubt as to whether their experiences are real, but when they're like having a regression, let's say, and they're reliving the experience of when they were in the state of consciousness, they have all the knowledge. They know that it's real. They know things about the race, they know about all the other times they were taken, they have recollection of all these things. Is there anything that, like, do you relate to that at all? Or have you ever been able to, whilst in these experiences, glean anything else from being in that state of consciousness, which presumably might have greater access to what's going on?
The experience that comes closest to what you're describing is the one that I had where these two light beings came into my living room and talked to me in the middle of the day.
Why don't you, tell that whole experience, and start from the beginning.
Yes.
When was this, first of all? Is this?
Oh gosh, it was just maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe something like that. And I'm in my living room, and the next thing I know, there's these two light beings in my living room, and I can see them. And I'm blinking.
They materialize right in the room, or they walk into the room?
I picked up my camera and took a picture, but they're not there. But I saw them.
Mhm.
There are two of them. And I made a graphic to the best of my ability because they're really, really hard to draw, because they were just constantly moving, undulating streams like kaleidoscope light. So gorgeous. They're very hard to draw because they're constantly moving. And it was mostly blues and silvers. And there was a little bit of like a green that would flash right here. And so they had a head, and they were very, very tall, and they had a body, and they had eyes and nose and a mouth. And the first thing they said to me was, and I'm taking notes the whole time that they're there. I mean, I'm that conscious and aware, taking notes of everything that they're saying. And they visited me again to give me information about our DNA and DNA activation. But the first thing they said to me, well, the first thing that happened was I felt so much love. I have never felt love like this before. It is beyond the love that you feel from your mother. It's beyond that. And so first that washed over me. And then they said, when you look into our eyes, you look into yours. And then instantly I felt very safe. And they started to give me information about energy and Tesla and Disney and Tchaikovsky, three men who've always been three of my favorite men since I was a little girl. I've always loved Tchaikovsky music, and I don't know anyone who doesn't like Tesla and Disney. And so they said to me that those three men were in contact, and they were channeling, and they know the truth. And
They were
that
in contact with these beings that you're talking to, or just
they
in
didn't
general?
tell me it was with them, but they said that they were in contact. I'm just going to assume it's them because they're the ones giving me the information. And they also said that Tesla and Disney met, and that when you listen to Tchaikovsky, it's a DNA activator. And it is not by accident that Disney's movie Fantasia is filled with Tchaikovsky music, because Disney knew. And so Fantasia is not a cartoon, it's a DNA activator. And it was my favorite cartoon when I was a little girl too, but it's not a cartoon. And that's the information that they gave me.
So that they came with that message, that particular so that's interesting. One time these guys show up, these two beings, of all the things they say, they tell you about Tchaikovsky and Disney and Tesla. I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, that would seem to suggest that there's something really important there, worthwhile for the whole visit,
all of us to know. And their information has to do with energy and frequency and DNA and activating DNA. That is their main focus from this particular, I call them the blues. That's what I call them.
So they didn't give you any kind of information as to anything more about their identity or...
No, I never asked.
Yeah.
And I just
You're
never
just totally just mind blown, and I might not even think to ask, and
yeah, I just don't go there. Maybe one day I will, but so far it hasn't happened. I'm just too busy. It could very well be that I subconsciously know, but when I'm talking to you now, I don't remember. It could very well be that.
Now, was that experience the memory of that? Like, did you go into an altered state during that experience to where when you came out of it, the memory faded a little bit? No, it was just you were in the normal waking state of consciousness.
I was completely awake.
Yeah.
Completely awake. I wasn't even taking a nap. I was just sitting there and they showed up. Yeah, it was shocking.
And what did they say to you from the get-go? When you look into our eyes, you look into yours?
Yeah.
Was that suggesting that you are, like, it could be, maybe relating to oneness, that, we're all the same, or could they have been saying that, you are the same, of the same origin or species or race, potentially?
Possibly, but the feeling that I got was bigger than that. It could be both.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you have had your experiences, and you said that, you would kind of be, I don't want to say zapped and you come back, but it was some kind of thing that you did. Was there like a loss of time when this happened? Or was it in like a certain time period? Like you would go to bed at 8:00 and how you would get up at, 8:00 in the morning, let's just say. Or was there like a massive loss of time and it took you a while to figure out where you was and all that, or did it just go away quickly?
I don't have a memory of loss of time with any of my experiences. It could have happened. My perspective is such that I'm not aware of it.
Okay. All right.
You wouldn't be aware of it if all your abductions are happening at night when you're unconscious anyway. The only times you would have missing time, or if you were, driving, say, or doing something.
Oh, that's true.
That's worth pointing out about that. That, if the ETs for whatever reason just only abduct you at night, you would never detect, missing time, probably. But yeah.
But they don't take you just at night. They could take you any time of the day. And they don't have to take your body. You can just have like this experience through the consciousness as well. And that seems to be the hardest, because there is a movement now from this nuts and bolts, what we call nuts and bolts investigation, where show me the proof, where now there's a move more towards, this is consciousness. This is happening in a way where I don't have the proof for you. I don't have that kind of proof for you. I have other kind of proof for you, but you don't like it. There's plenty of proof out here, but the 3D guys don't like it.
And frankly, they're not going to get anywhere with this if they're operating in that paradigm. They're not going to get, to step 2, of this investigation, because this is just absolutely, I mean, the multidimensional aspect of this is fundamental. If you're geared towards, what you can pick up with the 5 senses, that's not going to help you when it turns out that, there's a lot more outside of the range of visible light, that does exist still, that you can't taste, touch, feel, or see,
With quantum physics. This is what quantum physics is all about. It's trying
Mhm.
to make
Yeah.
sense of the illogical.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, Jim, do you have anything you would like to ask Sev before we wrap this up for the evening?
So the initial, we didn't get into, if we could just touch base on that one more time, because I feel like the initial sort of humanoid that you were in contact with that left you at age 12, and that was that last experience there where you were with a group of other children. Have you not had any inkling of contact with that being ever since, whether through dreams or altered states or telepathy? Do you have telepathy happen at all? And do you know who's transmitting? I mean, is it, or
So the only other time that being has come up is when I went under regression. What happened to my partner and I in Roswell freaked us both out. It was really strange. And so I tried to shake it and I couldn't. And when I went back to Capitol Hill, Washington, D.C., where I was living, I thought with time I could get over it, but I couldn't get over it. And so I confided in a friend and she said, well, I know a regression therapist who specializes with experiencers. I'm like, no kidding. So I told my partner, next week we're going to drive 3 hours one way so I can go under. And the thing about hypnosis, I don't talk much about it because I don't know what it is. I don't understand it. It definitely has value. It helps experiencers a lot, but you have to be ready. You have to be ready to get this kind of information. And when I talk about my experiences, they're all conscious memories. I do not talk about anything that really rarely do I ever talk about anything that came through in a hypnosis. But in this particular hypnosis, and I had my partner with me and he was taking notes and he witnessed the whole entire thing. All of a sudden, I found myself with a group of beings that look like the beings that I saw when I was a kid. And they were men and women. And
when did they regress you back to that age, the 10
no,
years of age, or
nuh-uh. They didn't regress me back. It's like as soon as I went under, and I can go under very easily, as soon as I went under, there was these group of beings right there that were talking to me that were in that unitard thing. They had a triangle right here, but I don't remember when I was little if the guy had a triangle. And so they're just having a discussion with me, and I feel like they're family. I feel a familiarity. I feel like they're family, and I want to be with them. And one thing they said, we're sorry. I'm like, for what? And he said, well, we didn't know it was going to be this hard to be a human. And we're just really sorry. It's really tough. I was like, dang, yeah. And they said, 3 of you, I think it was 3 of you volunteered for this. So you volunteered for this experience. I'm like, all right. And then it went on. There were other things that were done in the regression. So that's interesting to me. It's like stored back here in the back of my head because I really don't know what hypnosis is. It kind of falls in line with my experiences, but I don't know. I don't talk that much about it because I'm not really clear on that.
It's not clear, yeah, whether regression memories, whether or not they can be implanted. There's a lot of, or at least there's some red flags with it. Sometimes they absolutely contradict conscious memory recall.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's abductees who remember conscious memories one way, and then when they get regressed, the regression memories of that event really contradict the conscious memory recall. And it's really, who's to say, which is more accurate, or which is liable to be more accurate. Sometimes the regression memories, though, I mean, there is, one abductee in John Mack's book who had conscious memory recall, which interestingly wasn't triggered until 30 years after the event. Had conscious memory recall of being in a craft and having physical sex with the alien being a female, and he remembered the details and everything, the fondling of the breasts, he remembered all of this. And then when he got regressed, it turned out to be different, and he did not, have sexual relations with the being. They extracted sperm from him and had some kind of device on him that did that, and they ran imagery through his mind in order to, stimulate this.
Oh.
But he had never. And John Mack felt, it was more plausible, that's actually what really happened, that the regression memory seems more likely to be right. And that maybe either his mind, wanting to protect the ego, somehow influenced that conscious memory to kind of protect his ego somehow, so because it was, what actually happened to him was devastatingly vulnerable, I mean, as a lot of abduction experiences are, you're naked and you're, put through, what can be perceived as a violative experience if it weren't for some, overriding, imperative as to why, the beings are doing it. That's what needs to be said about abduction experiences and the terrible, aspects of them. If there's some kind of overriding imperative, then, if it's necessary, to help humanity, then, it justifies, putting people through bad experiences, and they might have volunteered for it anyway, potentially on a soul level. Yeah, that's the other thing.
Yep. That's an important part.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention that in relation to regression memories, is that sometimes they contradict conscious memory recall, but it's a puzzle, because there's say again.
It can still be very, very helpful. There are experiencers who really say that their regression saved their lives and helped them, and I do believe that it could be
right.
very helpful.
And with a large number of abductees, they would never have been able to process their trauma or know anything about the nature of their experiences had it not been for the regression.
That's right.
And it was those regression memories that started the whole thing, and their awakening and their realization of what had happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
So on some level, it is necessary, I think, to get to the details. But there's some, questions as to, whether or not they're always accurate or not, or whether they could be, when we're dealing with extraterrestrials, and who are sufficiently advanced, they could potentially interfere with that in some kind of way if they wish to. Other races maybe, that had self-interest, could with, their advanced technology potentially interfere with what we remember during a regression, or could totally project, a vision of something happening, which maybe never actually happened, that has to be regarded as possible,
Well, it's believed. We do believe that is what happens. One of those images are owls. You've heard about people seeing like
right.
white owls, and Mike Cleland, who's the owl guy, who wrote the book, which is like one of the books I would consider like a Bible book for ufologists, is Mike Cleland's book, The Messengers, about the connection between owls and the UFO phenomena. There is a direct relationship. They show up. I will show up whenever there's an abduction or a UFO. Or even if you're just thinking about it, they show up. That's what happened to me a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Wow. Sev, just listening to the conversation and all the things that I've actually learned from you in this last 2 hours, it's incredible. I love your story.
Thanks.
What you do to help others is another thing that it's so commendable, because a lot of people, they don't care. They're just like, hey, you had an experience. Okay, well, prove it. We want proof. We want this. We want that. But they, by letting them tell you, you not only help them tremendously, but I believe that it also helps you as well.
It sure does. Yeah.
Yes. And Sev, if people want to reach out to you, tell us again how they can reach you.
Thank you. My website is planetsev.com. I actually have a planet and a star system named after me in the Star Wars galactic system. It's the planet Sev Tok. And for those of you who like to watch Star Wars Andor, they mentioned my planet, and I got all these emails about, oh my God, I heard your name on Star Wars. Many years ago, my best friend was dating a writer, and he got a job writing a short story for Star Wars. And he liked my name, and he told me he was going to name a planet after me. And I thought he was kidding, but he did. And I'm in Wikipedia. The book came out, and there I am. So he has immortalized me forever. I'm very grateful. Yeah. And my email is sev@planetsev.com. If you're an experiencer and you're looking for some help, please contact me. There is a section on my website, Tell Me Your ET Story. You just fill out a few questions. It's very private, and then I'll respond to you. I also do private consultations. I do soul purpose sessions, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. I'm really easy to find. I'm on Gaia TV with George Nuri, Beyond Belief, and I will be in an upcoming episode of a very, very popular show on the History Channel. I can't say what it is yet, but you can probably figure out what it is. I think that'll be coming up in September, I think.
And you also, you host you have a podcast on MUFON, don't you?
Yes, Contact Radio. I host it with Earl Grey Anderson.
Yes. Yeah. Another great show.
Thank you. Oh, your support just means the world to me, both of you. And your questions were wonderful, really insightful, and there were deep questions that were very good. Thank you.
Well, that is a lot of Jim wants to know these things, and he wants to get deep into them. And I just follow along because I kind of ask the simple questions while he takes care of the bigger, deeper mysteries.
Yeah, but the simple questions are important, like Y and X. That's a simple question, but I can't really have an answer.
Exactly. But it kind of takes everybody to hear their opinions on it as well. So it really works out the best that way. I feel anyway.
Yeah.
Well, Sev, I want to thank you so much. I want to thank all our watchers and listeners, and I just had a really great time. Sev, I definitely want to have you back on again.
Yeah, I would love to.
Talking about anything you want to talk about.
Well, I can share experiencer stories with you if you're interested in the messages that they got and how it changed their lives. I have lots of those.
That would be fantastic.
Their artwork. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we would definitely love that. And I'm sure our viewers and listeners would like that as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Jim, you have anything you want to say?
Nope. I think that was pretty thorough.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. And we hope to see you all again on the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in with us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. A Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure is looking to talk with ufologists, researchers, investigators, contactees, abductees, channelers, and more for upcoming shows. Or if you have stories, photos, videos, questions, suggestions, or comments, please contact us through Messenger or email us at paranomalypodcast@gmail.com. And you can also visit us at paranomalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. I thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure.